Welcome back, Honors. So, where do we leave off? Yeah, Pat Miller, you heard me say it. I said, welcome back, Honors, and I said so. All right? So, and I clapped, so leave me alone. Now, anyway, we left off in class talking about the causes of the Peloponnesian War, right? It's leading up to being kind of in a way, when you think about it, this is actually kind of the first civil war. And really, really quickly, did anybody see this coming before it happened? That's why, people like Kayla and Crystal Nguyen are just so smart, because they saw the foreshadowing about all this stuff happening with the early establishment of the Delian League, right? And the fact that Sparta was in so much chaos, and the fact that Athens was doing so well during their classical period, and right? So anyway, the big part about it, a lot of this does come from resentment. A lot of this does come from economic policies that Athens is going to try and force on most of Greece. And a lot of it is going to just come down to the fact that culturally Sparta and Athens were longtime rivals, right? So the coolest part about this whole thing is, of course, we know that the Athenians have the Delian League, right? Well, the Spartans are going to grow up and they're going to actually have their own league. They're going to, for the first time in history, they're going to decide to create alliances with foreign city-states, right? Ones that don't even share necessarily the same cultural values that they do. Places like Corinth, places like Megara, and several other different places, actually. I believe the island of Lesbos is actually going to unite with Spartans as well. So I'll have to look that up. But anyway, economics are going to be a really, really big reason why this war actually breaks out. So, first of all, is Athens, early on, the fighting at its earliest phases is going to break out due to the acts of a couple of smaller city-states, right? So, one of them happens to be Corinth, right? So, Corinth is actually one of Sparta's allies, and they're going to actually be trying to take over another city-state. Very, very Spartan-like, right? No wonder they like these guys. So, Corinth is in the process of taking over one of the other Greek city-states, and they are actually going to lace, and Athens is going to slap them with a restriction. And they're going to say, stop doing this, and they're actually going to show up with their naval fleet and prevent Corinth from taking over one of their allies. And then after that, they're going to lay siege to one of Corinth's colonies, right? So Corinth is going to run back to Sparta and be like, the Athenians are trying to pull their weight too much. They're stopping our actions. They're stopping us from doing anything, and they're also trying to damage our colonization scheme. Well, Athens, on top of that, is going to slap a place called Megara with trade sanctions, saying that they could not trade with, excuse me, which said that they were not allowed to trade with any allies of Athens whatsoever because they supported the Spartans, which would have been a death blow to the Megaran economy, right? So Corinth and Megara are going to actually convince Sparta to enact some of the very first attacks on the Athenians, right? Well, first and foremost, when this war breaks out, what do you think the Athenian strategy is going to be? Boom. Exactly right, Suze. It's going to be surround the Spartans by sea, creating effectively, write this down, creating effectively what is known as a blockade, right? The Athenians are going to create a blockade around it, believing in their mind that they're going to prevent the Spartans from ever actually bringing in food or supplies and keep the Peloponnesian, and basically choke out the Peloponnesian League with trade restrictions, right? Keep them from being able to survive fluidly, okay? Well, of course, the Spartans are also going to come up with their own strategy as well, but due to the fact that they don't have a naval fleet, right, they're going to decide to surround Athens to prevent it from raising food, right? We talked about the scheme of the ancient Greek polis, right? And we talked about how the metropolis is like the mother city, right? And that usually has a large wall around it, but the actual metropolis area, not a lot of people live within the wall, right? Within the wall, you've mainly got your Acropolis and then your Agora area at the bottom, including a lot of other civic buildings and things like that. But the main thing about it is most of your food is produced outside of the wall, in the country areas and in the other areas and small villages and towns on the outside. So the Spartans are going to roll in, and they're actually going to burn the Athenian crops to the ground, right? Burn them to the ground, consume the food for themselves, and also start stripping other towns and land so they can actually find their food for their allies in a different way, right? So, genius idea by the Spartans, right? If we don't have boats, we'll do it physically, right? We'll blockade you with our manpower. So, first and foremost, what's going to actually result due to this is going to have to do with a stalemate, right? So, a stalemate is when neither side is actually winning, all right? Now, for much of the war, neither side actually could gain an upper hand over the other. There were a lot of few short periods of peace, but it was a 27-year-long war. Now, unfortunately, when I made this presentation, I was 26. And as you can tell, I'm not 26 anymore. Actually, I age very well, but still, you know. Like, this makes me really sad whenever I use this because this isn't an accurate fact anymore. All right, anyway, but let's keep going. Well, Athens is going to end up being devastated when, unfortunately, they get hit by a plague, right? Now, stinks to be you, I guess, right, Athens? So Athens is severely weakened by a plague that's going to break out and kill almost 1 out of every 3 of their population, including their fabled hero Pericles, right? So, who do you think is going to take up the leadership mantle after the death of Pericles? For any of you who said, oh, the philosophers, you're a friggin' genius. I know you said it, Joey Martirano. I heard you back there. So Socrates and several of the other philosophers are going to step up and begin to try and actually lead the Athenian practices. Well, one of the dumbest things they could have done was this thing called the Syracuse Expedition, right? So as you can see, things are not going Athens' way right now, okay? So the Syracuse Expedition was actually, remember how we talked about the Greeks began to colonize everywhere during their archaic period? Yeah, don't forget that. So anyway, so during this colonization period, Syracuse was actually a colony set up by Sparta and its allies, right? And they had a large amount of food reserves there. So the Athenians had the idea, they're like, look, we'll go destroy Syracuse on the island of Sicily. All right, let me back it up real quick. As you can see right there. All right, so anyway, so Syracuse is right, boom, right there. All right, so the Athenian campaign idea was we're going to use our naval fleet, and we're going to sail over here to Syracuse. We're going to land, come up from behind them, and we're actually going to destroy their food reserves, right? So the thing about it is, and as you can tell right here, the Spartans are actually going to be on the land, and they're going to like destroy a lot of these other little places, and they're going to go outside of Athens. They're going to go bam, bam, bam. And like anyway, so Thebes was a big Athenian ally too as well, or not Athenian ally, but a Spartan ally. So the main thing about it is this invasion of Syracuse was costly, took way too much time, and was a massive, massive, massive failure. They actually was a huge mistake, okay? They were destroyed royally by the Spartans in a very quick and swift fashion. Now, guess who convinced Athens to go invade Syracuse, though? Go figure. Socrates is the one who did it. Yeah, you thought you were so smart, didn't you? So all I know is that I don't know how to invade places. All right, now, anyway, so keep going, though. They hoped to destroy the Spartans' food supply, but they were surrounded and annihilated by the Spartans. Now, the next thing that happens, let me make sure, yep. The next thing that happens, Sparta is going to win the war by doing one of the most grimy things in history. Probably one of the most screwed up things, probably even by Spartan standards, just considered a little bit out of line. All right? So, Sparta is going to ally with someone to try and gain a naval fleet so they can actually destroy Athens, because without a naval fleet, the Athenians were never going to be stopped, and this war would have gone on forever and would have eventually ended in some kind of BS peace treaty, right? Who do you think they're going to actually ally with to gain naval vessels and ships? I hear Mary Gardner yelling some stuff out, but unfortunately, no, that's not correct. They're not going to ally with, like, Rome. The Romans weren't there yet, right? I hear Quan saying some things. Sorry, Quan, no. Wait. I think I just heard, what was that? Yep, Olivia, you're on something. O'Callahan? That's exactly right. They're going to ally with the Persians, right? So Sparta is going to ally with Persia, borrow their naval vessels, and as Ionia was revolting against Athens and the Delian League, and they are going to completely smash Athens and destroy them. So Syracuse weakened the Athenians, but they actually held out for about 10 more years. The Spartans are going to finally conquer Athens in 404. Athens is going to have to give up its entire navy and its empire, and Athens had to begin to follow Spartan foreign policy. So the war is actually going to end in that way. And the aftermath of the entire thing, though, is going to be Athens was the strongest, but guess who's strongest now? Sparta is going to gain the most power in all of Greece. And the big problem is, though, is much of Greece was lied in ruins, right? And Greece was severely weakened economically and militarily. Greek culture is going to begin to slow down. But the main thing was that this war weakened Greece so severely that it left room for Alexander the Great to start his Hellenistic empire, right? Bam! So, I know I moved a little bit quickly, but it's because I didn't want to take up too much of y'all's time on a weekend, right? And I'm also getting this up on a Friday, so take that, nerds. Anyway, but I will see you guys on Monday, and we're going to begin all the good stories about Alexander the Great, his dad, and all this other kind of crazy stuff that he saw. So, anyway, can't wait to see you guys on Monday. Honors. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go Birds. Beat the Niners.